CNN contributor and the Dispatch editor-in-chief, Jonah Goldberg, took aim at CNN, his own network, as well as the broader media landscape, voicing sharp skepticism over how the Gaza crisis is being portrayed. He did this yesterday, speaking on a panel discussion. During this discussion, Jonah Goldberg says, he said he was going to, quote, be a skunk at the garden party, warning that many public narratives, including narratives from the media, narratives from the United Nations, and even humanitarian groups, are deeply unreliable. Goldberg acknowledged the real suffering on the ground, but argued that foreign policy driven by viral imagery often lacks the depth and the context that is necessary to properly cover the story. And moreover, it leads to, as he put it, misinformation. Anyway, I'm going to show y'all a clip of this because I want y'all to get a sense of what's happening here.
Israeli-backed humanitarian distribution effort, which has frankly led to a lot of deaths. Jonah, how are you seeing this?
Yeah, I'm just going to be a skunk at the garden party on all of this. I am deeply skeptical of pretty much every actor, mainstream media, including some people at this network. The UN is a hotbed of deceit and deception and self-dealing. UNRWA and Hamas are deeply in bed with each other. It's not entirely the fact that UNRWA is entirely run by Hamas, but it is deeply infiltrated by Hamas. Hamas is the government of Gaza. And if you read closely the coverage of this, if you read the UN statements about this, all of the responsibilities are on Israel to feed everybody. And I think Israel should do more. Some of these images are legitimately terrible, but we who spend our time in TV should have some more acknowledgement of how badly things can go awry when public policy and foreign policy are governed by images.
Can I ask a quick question then, to your point, because Israel does not trust international aid organizations for the reasons you described,
Sure.
Their belief that Hamas takes food and resources, which we have seen in the past, do they bear responsibility for the way the humanitarian food distribution has happened, which has been by an organization that they backed?
Yeah, they obviously bear some responsibility. I don't think Israel is a perfect actor in this situation at all.
And I hear you saying everybody is a bad actor, but
Yeah.
you're bringing in the news, you're bringing in all these people.
But
And is there a
What
tipping
about
point
Hamas?
where a famine becomes something to be addressed on its own through moral questions of its own value?
Yeah, I mean, on the question of famine, as you had in the setup piece, it says the worst case scenario for famine is proceeding. The same report said there's not, in fact, famine right now. They came short of saying that. They're saying that if this scenario continues to play out, we saw a news cycle where I had to comment on stuff about how if in 48 hours Israel didn't do something, 14,000 babies
Yes.
would be killed, would die. Turned out that was a complete social media driven hoax. I think a lot of people in the media, a lot of people like Donald Trump are following these stories based upon the steady stream of images they get on social media and on TV.
So this is interesting. A lot of things happening in this clip. I'm going to focus on what I mentioned at the top of the show, but we're going to dig a little bit deeper too, right? First, it's important to know that Jonah Goldberg is criticizing the media, criticizing the UN, criticizing Hamas over the Gaza coverage. Criticizing Hamas is easy. Everybody criticizes Hamas. You get no points for criticizing Hamas. Not here. Not because Hamas doesn't deserve to be criticized, but because it's not a bold move. It's not exactly a profile in courage in the Western media. But criticizing the United Nations, obviously we see UN Security Council resolutions being vetoed all the time, etc. Cool. But criticizing the media, particularly the Western media, particularly his own network, I think is important. I think that it's also important that, let's be honest here, Jonah Goldberg is Jonah Goldberg, right? He's respected. He's important. That's the kind of voice you want speaking out. Because if you're screaming from the cheap seats, you're either going to get ignored or you're going to get punished. But Jonah Goldberg, as CNN contributor, has a better standing. Now, I'm not talking about myself here. Prominent CNN contributors have been fired for less. But I think Jonah is willing to stand up and be courageous here. And I appreciate that. Even if I don't agree with his analysis fully or a lot of it, I agree with his point here, which is that the networks have not told this properly. And there's the lack of trust. You know, trusting a media outlet is partly about, do they get it right? And part of it is, do they want to get it right? You know, how much of this is bad coverage? How much of this is intentionally bad coverage? Those are the questions we got to ask. But either way, I appreciate him saying something about it. But now let's push it even further. Let's challenge it even further. And that goes for all of us. My advice to y'all who are watching this is, don't wait for CNN to get it right. Don't wait for MS or Fox to get it right. Find alternative news sources that are already getting it right. And if they're already getting it right, then you don't have to worry about this kind of stuff. Anyway, or you still have to hold them accountable. But so I don't mean to say, like, you know, if a network is doing a good job, that's it. But at least it's a good start.